Hello, I'm Grace and this is Jane, and today we have Mr. Lavoie. Thank you so much for being here with us today.
My pleasure. Looking forward to it.
First off, we want to congratulate you on your new promotion.
Thank you.
What exactly is your title and what will you be doing?
I'm going to be the Director of Operations for both Northborough and Southborough Public Schools. So I'll be working with Superintendent Martineau on a variety of different things, including transportation. We know we love buses, so certainly buses is going to be one of my primary responsibilities. Also food services, helping Mr. Parson, the Director of Food Services, deliver lunches to the schools and what else we can do in that regard. And I'm also going to be helping our facilities managers. So for Algonquin and Northborough and Southborough, there's a facilities manager for each of those facets, and I'm going to be working with them to collaborate and share resources and do some of the larger projects that are happening within our schools. So there's a lot to be done, that's for sure. So, and I guess also there's also special projects I'm going to be doing. So as things pop up and as Mr. Martineau needs, I'll be answering the call to him. So I'm looking forward to the opportunity to work with him. But I'm very sad to be leaving Trottier. This has been home for a long time. So that's bittersweet.
We want to talk about some of the happenings here at Trottier.
Sure, okay.
First off, with Mindfulness, how is the planning for that?
Mindfulness hasn't been has been in our plans for a very long time. I give Mrs. Tatro and Mrs. Hibben a lot of credit. They have been our mindfulness gurus for a long time. They've had some highly specialized training. They've even presented at national conferences about how we deliver mindfulness instruction here at the middle school, providing an 8th grade elective, and then working from there. We've always wanted to bring it to more of the whole school and the faculty in different ways, and whether it be a common vocabulary or just some basic common exercises and stuff like that that could reduce the stress level of our staff and kids was something that we wanted to take a closer look at. We also wanted to be responsive to our kids. We're finding that kids are coming in more and more stressed and more overwhelmed. So we wanted to make sure that we can combat that in the best way possible. And mindfulness is a great research-based way of doing that. So it's kind of had a long history, but we've really wanted to become a focal point of school in recent years.
So we're really sad to hear that this year the 6th grade Stone trip was sadly canceled.
Yes.
Was there any replacement trip or thinking of what to do this year for the awesome 6th graders?
Yeah, so let me give you the history of it a little bit, is that we have been going to the Stone Environmental Center since 1981, actually. And this past summer, unfortunately, the director, who had been in charge of Stone for a long time, passed away unexpectedly. His name was Dave Fries, and he was a great friend of Trottier's for a long time. We didn't hear about his passing until August. So Mr. Hershek and I came back to school in mid-August to a phone call from his wife that shared that he had unexpectedly passed away in June, and that the family had struggled with it, but decided to, close the environmental school. So Stone no longer exists, which is sad, and there's no plan to have that particular part reopened. So we kind of got together. We talked to the 6th grade team. We also talked to Melican Middle School. They have gone to Stone for years, and we tried to find a suitable alternative for it. So the latest round of it is that Mr. Hershek and I did some exploring over the fall. I went down to the Cape and looked at an environmental school down on Cape Cod. Mr. Hershek went up to New Hampshire to look at another one that's in basically the same region as Stone. And we have made a decision. So this is hot off the presses for the kids, but the teachers are aware that we are going to be going to Camp Cody, which is up in the Ossipee Lake region, in late March, early April of this coming year for our 6th graders. And then the plan is that next it will return to a fall time trip. So for next year's 6th grade, they'll be doing the usual trip that you guys took a couple of years ago. So we were able to make it happen. I give Mr. Hershek a lot of credit. He's done a lot of work. The teachers also see it as a huge priority and have made arrangements to be available. So we've lost 6 months, but certainly, nothing will replace Stone. it had such a great, rich history for us, and Mr. Freeze was such a great friend. So certainly send his family our condolences. And I know many of our teachers were very close to Mr. Freeze. So this hasn't been an easy thing to do, but we knew we had to move quickly in order to find a suitable alternative, and I think we have. So we're on our way.
We also had an awesome DC trip this year.
We did.
How was the planning for that?
Starting already. Literally the day we come back is the day I start planning next year's trip. So even though I'm taking on a new responsibility, I'm going to be very involved with the DC trip. To what degree, I'm not sure yet, but I was just having a conversation with Mrs. Bowker about our dining experience at Buca de Beppe. Didn't meet expectations, so we're actually looking at different restaurants that can hold 150 people, 260 people for the trip. So yeah, the planning's already underway. We have our wreath laying ceremonies already been set. We got an appointment for that. We also have an appointment at a couple of other locations that we went this year. So the planning's already starting and the itinerary's coming together. So
what was your favorite part of the trip this year?
This year, I think two. I love the way that our students responded to the Holocaust Museum. I watched our students really intently through that entire exhibit, and I love the way that they connected with it. Give Mr. Boston and Mrs. Jenks a lot of credit for their work in preparing us for a visit to the museum, but I think our kids were also ready and did a nice job of taking that all in. So I like seeing students really get something from the museums, not just walk around with their phones in their hands. I saw a lot of that too at American History and the museum. So I liked what I saw this year with the students at the museums, and that's not always the case. So I was really happy to see that. Another experience I love every year is when our students lay the wreath at the Tomb of the Unknown Soldier. We've been doing that for a long time, but that always gives me goosebumps when we show our respect in that way, especially over Veterans Day. So that whole experience at Arlington National Cemetery always, is special to me. Always will be.
Did you ever had to postpone the trip or cancel it by any reason, with weather or something else?
Yeah, only, let's see, 9/11. So when the September 11th attacks occurred, we were going to be traveling the next month in October of that year of 2001. That trip got postponed until April. So instead of going in April of 2001, we went in April of 2002. So we didn't miss a year. That was one time where we had to take pause, and we took extra security measures and stuff like that. A lot of what you guys experienced this year was added to the trip at that point, because we had to make sure we were crossing T's and dotting I's. We also had, and you guys will never remember this, but there was an incident in 2003, 2004 called the DC Sniper, which was a very scary time in DC, where there was someone going around doing some very hurtful things, and it was very odd. It was very peculiar, but we took some extra precautions there, and we wound up not having to postpone the trip because of that incident, which was good. So aside from that, the only thing I worry about in November is the weather. I mean, we just experienced 2 days of snow in early December, so we have been on the DC trip when there's been snow down there. We went to Mount Vernon one time, and there were flakes coming down. So I like to avoid that, but we haven't had to do anything radical since 9/11, which has been good. And I think the other thing I'd mention about the trip and its consistency is the community has been very supportive. The parents have been hugely supportive. Our students have wanted to go, and they've really behaved unbelievably well that allow us to do that. Because if it changed, if the behavior wasn't spectacular on the trip and people weren't really getting something out of it and it was a constant problem, I don't think we would continue. But that has not been the case, and you guys did a great job this year, so I think we're going to go again in 2020.
We've been hearing some stuff about the Principal Leadership Council.
Oh, yes.
What exactly is that?
Couple things. For many years, we had a student government, and it got stale. So we disbanded it for a couple of years, and we wanted to think of a way to get students more involved in decision making. So Mr. Hershek and I kind of went back and forth a little bit and decided to launch a Principals Council. And it was made available to all students to kind of apply. And we had about, I think 25 students from all 3 grades submit an application through a Google form that I reviewed, and then I interviewed. I sat down and had an interview with all the kids that were interested, and we got it down to a really good number. I think there's about 16 or 17 students from all 3 grades that are interested in kind of having a voice in decision making around school. So right now we're brainstorming. It's in its infancy. We've only had 2 meetings so far, but we're going to definitely do 2 things. We're going to be attacking some of the concerns that they have and answering questions that they're bringing up, whether it be about homework or school lunch and things like that. And then the other thing is that we're going to be doing some research about the history of Trottier. We're going to be doing some interviews with people, and it's going to be pretty exciting. So I have my next meeting with the group tomorrow morning, and we're going to kind of plot the course tomorrow. So it's been pretty exciting.
How do you become a member?
Well, everyone was invited and able to apply. So an email went out to all the parents that also had a link to a Google form that people could fill out. So all the students that went through the process of kind of applying were interviewed, and through availability, we whittled it down to a number. So we got it to a good place.
That's a really good. It sounds really fun.
I hope so. You know, it's new. It's kind of trying it a little differently from a different angle. We hope it's successful. So far, I've been really impressed with the students that have been there. Their contributions have been great. So I think they're serious about, you know, we're not just doing a clothing drive or stuff like that. We're really going to talk about some of the things that are concerning them. So that is something I'm looking forward to, those conversations.
Could you tell us a little bit about your family?
I sure could. I'd be happy to. So I'm married to Kristen, and we have 2 young kids. My Madison is 11 years old, and she's a 6th grader, and Ryan is a 3rd grader. So I have a boy and a girl that are 11 and 8 years old, and my wife and the 2 of us, the 4 of us, live together in Kingston, Massachusetts. So my wife grew up in Duxbury, Mass, which is down near Plymouth, down that way. So we've set up our home in Kingston, and I make the commute to Trottier every day very willingly. So that's basically about my family.
Do you have
Pretty
any
simple.
pets? Or?
No, negative. Not a fan of dogs. Too much work, I guess. We like to visit, and let's put it that way. We like to visit dogs and cats, but keep them away from the home. I think a lot of teachers would attest that I'm not a pet fan for a variety of reasons.
Anyways, this past month we actually saw new lights in the hallways. What's up with that?
What's up with that? Well, it's part of a town-wide initiative. The town worked with the state on getting some grant funding to do some, it's kind of like an electrical audit. Like basically, you know, they came in and assessed the school, and they determined that if we were able to reduce our electrical, consumption through our hallway lights, that we would save a lot of money. So those rebates are coming back. So we were able to install LED lighting that is on motion sensors that allow it to kind of dim and brighten as the day unfolds, and I know people have seen that, and it's just a different type of light, so I think that's been the most noticeable change, and our hope is that people get used to it pretty quick. But so far, aside from a few people complaining about it being too bright, the people are like, oh, it's kind of cool, it's kind of neat. So I've liked it personally. It hasn't impacted me. The other benefit of it is that it's a change in the type of light that it is. So some of our students that are sensitive to light, especially the students in the collaborative, actually were having some seizure issues with the old lights. And now with the new lights, their seizure activity has gone down to nothing. So we are able to do their classroom. We didn't do any other classrooms at this point, but I want to make sure we took care of them. So that was done in the last month or so.
That's amazing.
Yeah, it was pretty cool.
Can you tell us a little bit about Trottier's old history?
I sure can. And you can see that in our main lobby. We have a display case in the main lobby, which are different objects and relics from the old Deerfoot Farm. So Deerfoot Farm was on this location. And it was a dairy farm for many years, and actually quite famous. And through over time, I think with the farming kind of dissipated, this land became a beautiful pasture. And in fact, there was a gorgeous oak tree, which is now on our letterhead. Nice, gorgeous oak tree that was in the middle of the property, and they couldn't decide what to do with it during construction. No one wanted to to cut it down. We wanted to see if we could preserve it in some way, and ultimately it was impossible. And sure enough, just before construction was about to begin, lightning struck and hit the tree and separated it a little bit. So the decision was kind of made for us that tree had to be taken down. But that's kind of part of the history. It's kind of neat. You'll also see down our back entrance, the Deerfoot Road entrance, there's kind of a parkway style where there's an entrance on one side, a grassy area, and then an exit on the other. Right in the middle of that is the foundation for the barn. So the main barn's foundation was there and kind of worked its way towards the track parking lot. That's where the main barn was. And you'll see kind of a natural ramp that goes up to that rock wall. Do you guys know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
There's a natural land ramp that comes up, and that was the actual ramp that the cattle would come up to get into the barn. So that's kind of a neat little thing. And then to the side of that, to the entrance side, there's 2 cement slabs, huge round cement slabs that are about 15 feet wide. Those were the bases or the foundation for silos, where they used to keep the grain and stuff like that. So yeah, Trottier was the site that it was on was a pretty vibrant farm back in the 1800s and early 1900s.
That's really fascinating.
Yeah, it's really cool. It's really cool.
What is the best part of Trottier?
What was the best part about Trottier? Well, I think without question, it's a feel that's here in the building. It has a lot to do with the people that come. I think it starts with the teachers. I think the teachers do an outstanding job of building a welcoming environment for the students. And we have great kids. The community has been very supportive of the school, and therefore, I think everyone kind of feeds off of that. And our kids are fantastic. When we have people visit and they see students exiting the room thanking the teacher for the lesson, that doesn't happen, but it happens here. And that's something I think we all should be really proud of. So it's not one thing. I think it's kind of a collective feel that's in the building that just makes it extra special, and that's why I think we love coming here every day.
Of course.
Well, we want to thank you for coming here and
Oh, my
being here with
pleasure.
us today.
My pleasure.
Thank you for tuning in to Trottier TV. I'm Grace, this is Jane, and we have Mr. Lavoie. Thank you so much.
Thanks, guys.